Hi everyone and welcome to Blank Faces. Hopefully the music's not louder than me voice. In today's video we're going through an article titled Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains, the Nation's Silent Mass Disaster by Nancy Ritter. So Nancy Ritter is a very notable name in the world of unidentified and missing people. She basically started off this whole trend of identifying the issues within unidentified and missing persons cases. She was quite pivotal in getting different departments in America in basically researching these cases and getting data and tracking what these issues were. I could have probably said it a little bit better. But she's also a writer, editor and senior specialist at the National Institute of Justice, known as the NIJ, the research arm of the US Department of Justice. She also served as a long-time editor for the National Institute of Justice Journal, where her influential 2007 article coined the term a mass disaster over time to describe the tens of thousands of unsolved missing persons and unidentified remains cases in the United States. So this article, The Silent Mass Disaster, is quite well known, it's famous, and you'll find when we go through different articles that she's constantly being referenced, and rightly so, because it started it all off. She also highlighted the need for better databases, which is kind of cool, something I've been banging on about for a long time. Not since 2007, mind, but I'm sure her work somehow has had an impact on how I think about these cases, and so it's genuinely important to read this journal, this article that's been put out. It's quite old now, like I say, it was written in 2007, and I want to go through it to try and see what I can learn from it, what information I can take from it, and learn about what questions I should be asking. Well, not should be, what questions I can ask. And like her discussions, her work actually helped create the database NamUs as well. So this is how pivotal her work is. Hi dry spell, hope you're well. So there's a link in the description of this video for this article if you want to read along. The background music is provided, as always, by the Relax Movement. There's a link in the description. So let's get straight into the article. This is The Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains, the Nation's Silent Mass Disaster by Nancy Ritter. Making Every Encounter Count, Building Trust and Confidence in Police by Jake Horowitz. Essay in Abusive Relationships by Lauren R. Taylor and with Nicola Gaskin Lanian. Online DNA Training Target Lawyers Judges by Glenn R. Schmidt. Identifying Remains, Lessons Learned from 9/11 by Nancy Ritter. So this is 32 pages. I'll get a bit... Can you see it? Yeah, you guys can see it. So it was written by the... So this is the US Department of Justice Office and Justice Programs, and it's located at the 810 7th Street, NW, Washington, DC, 20531. The Attorney General is Alberto R. Gonzalez. Assistant Attorney General is Regina B. Schofield, and Acting Director for the National Institute of Justice is Glenn R. Schmidt. This and other publications and products of the National Institute of Justice can be found at the National Institute of Justice website www.ojp.usdoj.gov/NIJ. So we got a message by the director. Making a difference in the lives of individual Americans. Although this phrase may define the core mission of many governmental agencies, it is used so often that at times the meaning can feel hackneyed and diluted. But in this issue of the journal, you will see real examples of how NIJ's work makes a difference in the lives of real people. People like Melody Riley, who recently sat in a Texas courtroom to watch the sentencing of a man who murdered her brother and dumped his body in a field. The Centre for Human Identification, an NIJ-supported forensic laboratory that uses the most advanced DNA technologies to solve missing persons and unidentified human remains cases, was able to identify Sean Riley's bones and help bring his killers to justice. Learn more about the Centre for Human Identification in our lead article, The Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains, the Nation's Silent Mass Disaster, and how the services of this unique DNA laboratory are available to every law enforcement officer, medical examiner and coroner in the country. That's America. Another example of DNA technology making a difference in individual lives occurred on a tragically grand scale on September the 11th, 2001. On the 5th anniversary of the terrorist attacks, the National Institute of Justice published a major report on how DNA was used to identify the victims. But this report is much more than a historical document. It also looks to the future, offering guidance from the National Institute of Justice supported panel of forensic experts on how to prepare for another large-scale DNA identification effort, whether from a terrorist attack, a mass transportation accident or a natural disaster. Our story, Identifying Remains, Lessons Learned from 9/11, highlights the full report. A third DNA-related story is another example of how NIJ makes a difference. Online DNA trading target lawyers, judges, showcases one of our most recent and exciting tools. Online training to help criminal justice practitioners, judge prosecutors and criminal defence attorneys use DNA evidence in the pursuit of the truth in the courtroom. All three of these examples are made possibly by funding under the President's DNA Initiative, a 5-year effort to enhance the use of this important tool to solve crimes and protect the innocent. The National Institute of Justice is privileged to administer the initiative, advancing justice through DNA technology on behalf of the administration and the US Department of Justice. But this issue of the journal is not just about DNA. In it, you will also find articles about the public's perception of police officers and the correlation between sexual and physical assaults on women in relationships. Both provide important information that practitioners and policymakers should know. Whether forensics, policing or violence against women, these and many other key criminal justice areas are supported by the National Institute of Justice Research, Development and Evaluation. I hope that the results of our work, highlighted in this and other issues of the journal, will help you in your work to further the cause of justice in America. And talking about it and reading through it and asking questions does just that. Even if it's just one person that listens, it's one person that might go and have a conversation with somebody else. So, extremely important to go through these documents. How are you, Dry Spell? What have you been up to? Anything what's been happening round the way on the internet? I'm not reading all that. I'm not reading that bit. Don't. One of those pages just got information on that I don't need. So the contents of this article, it features the missing persons and unidentified remains, the nation's silent mass disaster by Nancy Ritter. Then we've got making every encounter count, building trust. I think we've got all of them. Oh right, yeah, we've got all of them in here. I was confused there. I thought it was just the Nancy Ritter one. So that's what we're going to be going through. We're going to go through the Nancy Ritter one. We're not going through every single article that was mentioned there. We might come to it at a different point on a different video. But I think this one's enough to go through. What's on my lip? I don't know. So if you ask most Americans about a mass disaster, they're likely to think of the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center, Hurricane Katrina, or the Southeast Asian tsunami. So there's a question. So what incident first comes to mind when you think of a mass disaster? I think I would have said 9/11, to be quite honest with you. Or the tsunami, you know, something similar to that. I think on the forefront of my brain these past couple of weeks has been the Dunblane issue for some reason. But there in itself is a mass disaster. Then we've got the 2 train derailments. Although I don't think it would be classed as the same scale, the need to identify the people on the train would have been quite a jobby. So what would you say would be your first thought when you thought of a mass disaster? Very few people, including law enforcement officials, would think of the number of missing persons and unidentified human remains in our nation as a crisis. It is, however, what experts call a mass disaster over time. And I agree with that. It genuinely is. It feels like it's a slow-moving ship coming into the dock, and it's not going to fully hit us until it comes into the dock. Do you know, some people are afraid of large things moving slowly. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a fear of it. And that's what it feels like with some of these cases, that they're just building up over time. Not in America. America seems to have some kind of... They've got something going for them with these DNA databases and new technologies and forensic research. They even get the community to fund some of the cases to do DNA testing and to create familial links. So I wonder, with America's success, would it be possible that we could have that here in the UK? Because I personally, I would put money into that. With the amount of non-profits available at the moment, that you just don't know who to trust, with so many coming up in the news at how they're conning others. You know, you've got, what was that? Is it We Are Blighty? They weren't allowed to do street collections. They weren't licensed to do street collections, and although they were doing lots of street collections, and people were telling them again and again, you shouldn't be doing it. You're not licensed to do so. You've got to do something with the local council. So I think a lot of people feel like those non-for-profits and those charities and those organisations somehow have a connection with the police and law enforcement. That can be an issue. Trusting whether they are legit, that's an issue. And all that, all those barricades in the way stops people giving information. And when people stop giving information, these cases go dormant. They become cold cases. And there needs to be a way that we've got to try and break through that bottleneck. And I think what needs to be done is they need to start getting the community thoroughly involved. And I mean by getting them hyped up about it. Not like, oh, look, we've got another case, rah, rah, rah. Not like that. But explaining the need to get this case resolved and why it needs to be resolved and what questions law enforcement still have. What things that they couldn't test upon. Could they test the toxicology of the person that was found in a river? Say in the River Thames. There's so many in the River Thames, it's just unbelievable. And even thinking about it now, there's probably somebody in the River Thames right now that is a missing person that's deceased as we're talking. Because not everybody has been recovered. Definitely out in the open sea. There's multiple. We couldn't count. We couldn't count how many missing people are out there unidentified in the sea. They get recovered all around the world every single day. There isn't a day on the year that someone doesn't get recovered. Every single day is covered. Sometimes it's initially they're not identified because obviously if the person that's found them's not had a relationship with them or doesn't know him, we can't identify him. So there'll be small periods of times with a lot of cases where they're not identified. And they get resolved really, really easy because their families, their loved ones, their friends, their colleagues all get involved, give them information to identify them. But sadly, there's a large part of the community that don't have colleagues, that don't have friends, that don't have family, that don't have support networks. And they don't have those people to do that. And it's clear there's other issues in the way that are stopping people from giving information. So I really do think that getting the public to contribute financially might be very beneficial to solving some of these cases because it will mean so much more to them and it will generate a conversation, the conversation that needs to happen. I could go on about that for absolute hours. Hillsborough, yeah. Hillsborough is one. 7/7, the London bombings, yeah. Oh, you've been babysitting and gardening? Well, I've not done any gardening this season. Not done anything. Just haven't got my head together to do anything. I've done a little bit of like litter picking and stuff. Tried to go out and talk to people, but I can't. I'm finding it really difficult. But I'm going through some kind of program or some shit. I think they're just pulling me along, to be quite honest with you. It's been a year and I've only just managed to get an assessment scheduled and that's weeks away. Is what it is. I can't talk about that, I'll get upset. The facts are sobering. On any given day, there are as many as 100,000 active missing persons cases in the United States alone. Every year, tens of thousands of people vanish under suspicious circumstances. Viewed over a 20-year period, the number of missing persons can be estimated in the hundreds of thousands. And that's the same with the UK. There's I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but hang on. So it's about 400 a day in the UK. And it's around 170,000 people a year. Which could go into around 300. It can go over 300,000 separate incidents. Certain incidents could be related to the same person. Due in part to sheer volume, missing persons and unidentified human remains cases are a tremendous challenge to state and local enforcement agencies. The workload for these agencies is staggering. More than 40,000 sets of human remains that cannot be identified through conventional means are held in the evidence rooms of medical examiners throughout the country, and also museums. Some cases of unidentified people are in museums. Some, I think mainly historical ones, but how museums handle deceased people and their remains is just put them in a cardboard box on a dusty shelf. Horrible. We need legislation into that. Well, I'd love to give my body to science, damn right I would, but I don't want them to put it in a cardboard box, mate. Have a bit of respect, you know. I've always said one of the biggest fears is someone messing with my body when I'm deceased. It's one of my biggest fears. And I just don't believe there's enough legislation here in the UK that stops people from doing that, to be quite honest with you. We've seen with the legacy funeral homes how bodies were just left to decompose in all manner of situations. Even one of the incidents was the fetus of a baby in a bag that they'd left on the floor. I can't even go too far into that. It'll just send me west. But I think that's like a silent mass disaster in itself, because it's only gonna get worse. Because how many people have had loved ones go through funeral homes? Don't get me wrong, we've all got ones in our community that we love and trust because they've done good services for our community. But how many are there out there that are just there to make money? The funeral homes that I've ever had contact with always did it to try and give people peace, to try and give that last bit of respect, because they knew how to handle it. They had that expertise, and that's why we relied upon those. And they do a fantastically good job. No one that I've ever been, I can't say I've ever had suspicions of anyone ever I've been in contact that we've used in our family. But I mean, when the legacy funeral home case came up, it did make you question. And how many people that have been buried have been treated like that, we don't know, because there's nobody regulating it. So that's another little disaster that's going to explode in our faces if we don't get a handle of it quickly. But only 6,000 of these cases, which was 15% out of the 40,000, have been entered into the FBI's National Crime Information Centre, known as the NCIC database. Wow. But don't forget, this was written in 2007. Efforts to solve missing persons cases are further hindered because many cities and counties continue to bury unidentified remains without attempting to collect DNA samples. And that's another thing that we don't have information on the cases that are featured on the Missing Persons Unit website that's run by the National Crime Agency. We don't know what cases have got DNA and what cases have not got DNA. So when you want to put in priority for certain cases, like for instance, as a content creator, if you're looking for a case that's going to be appealing to your audience, you want as much information. Sorry. Oh, what have I done here? Hi QQ, hope you're well. Oh, you put new bark paths in. Oh, cool. That's a bug's paradise, that is. They'll love that. They'll absolutely adore it. Creating a little ecosystem there. I'm glad you didn't put, you know not to put in their artificial lawn. Oh, I tell you what's killing me off more than the artificial lawn. Have you seen what they're doing with stones now? You can throw stones in your driveway and put this mad glue on the top of it and they don't move. Brilliant. Brilliant. But I don't fully trust that that's going to be good for our environment. We're just going to tarmac over everything. We've got tarmac, artificial lawns, and this glue stone shit. Don't even know what to call it. Destroying the earth bit by bit. I'm sick of seeing a concrete jungle. Round where I live, it's just concrete everywhere. That or tarmac. We seem to have lost quite a lot of our greenery, and it's quite sad. But yeah, I could go on about that for hours, couldn't I? About shitty lawns. Another one that I could go on about, I'm really hitting middle age now, but one thing that I could go on about is grass verges outside of people's houses. I tell you, the anger building up in me. Can you stop fucking parking on there, please, and park up your driveway? It looks like we've been hit by a bomb. Everywhere you go, it's depressing. Like all the lawns, any bit of greenery is now yellow because it's dying. It's got to be one of the worst droughts I've seen in my life, quite literally. I've never seen it this bad. And I'm worried that it's going to continue, and then we're going to have an issue of the big rain. We're going to have some big rain after this, you know. Because there's going to... Where's all that water going? Where's all the moisture going? It's got to go somewhere. And I think what the problem's going to be, because it's been so dry and so much debris has been building up, like dry leaves and grass and rubbish or what have you not, I think we're going to have a bit of a flood due to, what are they called? Grids and all that being blocked up. I think that's going to be a big issue for our town. Although they say that we're safe from a flood because we're in a dip. We're surrounded by mountains. Since when did being in a bowl make you safe? I don't know. I don't know about that. Don't know. Feel like it's what they said, same shit that they said about the Titanic, the unsinkable ship. Got a funny feeling some shit's gonna go down. We're gonna be turned back into a swamp again. Getting back to the article. Compounding this problem is the fact that many of the nation's 17,000 law enforcement agencies don't know about their state's missing persons clearinghouse or the 4 federal databases known as the NCIC National Crime Information Centre, CODIS MP, which is a combined DNA index system for missing persons, IFIS, which is the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, and VICAP, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, which can be invaluable tools in a missing persons investigation. So let's have a look. So what these databases do. Oh, look at that. I love how they provide information like that. You know, it sounds very simplistic, but I think the more that you know, the better that you can handle. CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System for Missing Persons, also known as the National Missing Persons DNA Database, the NMPDD. CODIS MP is a database specifically designed to assemble data on missing persons and unidentified human remains cases. It was created in 2000 by the FBI using existing portions of the CODIS database. The searchable database includes information on nuclear and mitochondrial DNA obtained from unidentified remains, relatives of missing persons, and personal reference samples. Having both types of DNA profiles maximises the potential for its successful identification. One thing that I was thinking what tool could be helpful for the UK in regards to identifying people? What can be used as a safeguarding measure without directly having to contact the police or agencies or charities or non-for-profits? What can we do ourselves to try and reduce all those organisations? Well, I was thinking of maybe an app. Say, for instance, I wanted to log information about my mum, but I didn't want to share it with no agencies. I just wanted to make sure, just in case something was going to happen in the future, that if my mum did go missing, I could go, right, I've got all the details right here, right now. We've confirmed them together, and I'm going to send them over to the police and say, my mum was missing. These are all the details. There should be no issue in between of that. That's where they get those details wrong. So, yeah, you can't do... I don't think putting clothing in there would be a good idea, because that changes. I think it'd have to be things that are a constant. If you know their blood group, throw it in. If you know their eye colour, throw it in. Like, especially when for parents, I think that would be beneficial for parents with children. Say you've logged all the details, like she's got your child's got a freckle on her right knee or something. Maybe upload an image onto that file, so you've got the exact image of that thing. You can take an image of her hair, of their natural hair colour. I don't think people are going to be too much interested in updating it every time they get a new pair of shoes or every time they get a new haircut. But putting the natural hair colour in there, it can help. Their skin colour, their nationality. If they've had any DNA analysis, like for looking for family members. Putting that information in there so it can be easily accessed. And I think also it should include emergency contact support. So say, for instance, say my mum goes missing, she's got a mobile phone. I can't actively get access to her records on her mobile phone, say who she called last or what have you not. We've got the issue of data protection in the way, and I think if that could be managed before someone goes missing, so say there's an emergency data contact, I think that would be really beneficial. So then, say I went missing, my mum can go, she's already confirmed with me if there's an issue that you can send her records to the police so they can investigate. Yeah, they might not send it to the parent until the police have cleared it because it's part of an ongoing investigation, but it saves waiting time because the permission is already there. And I think that would be quite beneficial. Might not be, but, you know, just going through ideas. So, CODIS was created in 2000 by the FBI using portions of the CODIS database. The searchable database... I've read that bit. Excuse me. IFS, the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, maintained by the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services Division, is a national fingerprint and criminal history database which provides automated fingerprint search capabilities, latent search capability, electronic image storage, and electronic exchange of fingerprints and responses. Wow, that's some sick software. Agencies may submit fingerprints electronically and will receive quick turnarounds on analysis. I wonder how long that is. I wonder how long that takes. The NCIC, the National Crime Information Centre, an information system maintained by the FBI and dedicated to serving and supporting federal, state and local criminal justice agencies. And VICAP is the Violent Criminal Apprehension Programme, is a nationwide data centre which is designed to collate and analyse information on crimes of violence such as homicides, sexual assaults, kidnappings and missing persons cases. Bridging the gap! Hey! I've been saying about bridging the gap for a long time, haven't I? I find it so... jarring isn't the right word. I think it is the right word, actually. I think it is the right word. I think it's... I lose all my senses when I'm going back on some of these studies and I'm realising I'm not so stupid after all, eh? They said even in jurisdictions that are familiar with the state and federal databases, some officials say that they have neither the time nor the resources to enter missing persons and unidentified human remains data into the systems. So why aren't they using then forensic students to do so? If it's just data input, I think that would be very vital, a very good pathway to bridge that gap, eh? I don't think volunteers would be a good idea because there's got to be a lot of training involved. But considering forensic students will be going through certain training on how to handle data, I think that would be a job for them. And it'll also give them vital experience on how to handle that data. I think tackling that issue early on with the people that are being trained to get into those systems and what have you not, I think that's beneficial too. Early intervention, as they call it. To help state and local jurisdictions address the county's mass disaster over time, the National Institute of Justice, the NIJ, has brought together some of the country's top criminal justice and forensic science experts as part of the President's multi-year initiative to maximise the use of forensic DNA in solving crime. The National Institute of Justice is making federal resources available to state and local law enforcement officials to identify human remains and help solve missing persons cases. The National Institute of Justice's plan is multifaceted and it includes programs aimed at training medical examiners, law enforcement officers and victims' families on forensic DNA evidence. I think that bottlenecks it. doing it just for victims' families, it bottlenecks it. I think the public needs to be educated. Although, from 2007 till now, which is 19 years, I think we can safely say there's a lot more material available online to understand DNA. I think it's always better to get to a wider audience than it is just to a specific audience, because you can create a larger specific audience by just going to a wider audience, right? Providing free testing of unidentified human remains and family reference samples. Encouraging states through proposed model legislation to collect DNA samples before unidentified remains are disposed of, and to analyse degraded and old biological samples. And I do think that's what the National Crime Agency's Missing Persons Unit website does need a good clear out. They need an overhaul. They need, like, what cases on there are deemed unsolvable due to having no DNA, no more leads. It's hard to find out which ones are which. Increasing law enforcement's use of federal databases to solve missing persons and unidentified human remains cases. CSI meets the real world. Many of these people who go missing in the United States are victims of homicide. Although the conventional approach to locating a missing person is to initiate a criminal investigation into the disappearance, in many cases the investigation begins at a different point, when human remains are found. This is where the Centre for Human Identification, known as CHI, steps in. Located at the University of North Texas Health Science Center, CHI is one of the NIJ's largest and most exciting DNA projects. At CHI's laboratory in Fort Worth, state and local law enforcement agencies can have nuclear and mitochondrial DNA testing performed on skeletal remains and on missing persons' family and direct reference samples. Experts at Chai's Laboratory for Forensic Anthropology, such as Harold Jill King, PhD, also perform anthropological examinations on unidentified human remains to determine manner and cause of death. All of this testing is free. Free of charge, as some would say. The National Institute of Justice funding on this revolutionary project means that every jurisdiction in the United States has access to one of the few laboratories in the country that can search the mtDNA and tandem repeat the STR profiles in the CODIS database. It also means that Derek Bachman can finally stop looking for his sister. Marcy Bachman was 16 when she ran away from her Vancouver, Washington home in May 1984. Although her remains were found a few months later, discovered in the woods near Deer Creek in Missoula, Montana, no one knew that the remains were hers. For nearly 2 decades, Derek, Marcy's brother, searched newspapers and missing persons files and even hired a private investigator to find Marcy. Finally, in 2004, a series of events brought him and his family to closure that they were seeking. It began when a cold case detective in Missoula heard about Chai. The detective sent a femur to the Deer Creek remains to the lab. From the Deer Creek remains to the lab. There, scientists ran DNA tests on the bone fragments and uploaded the profile into the CODIS database. Meanwhile, in King County, Washington, authorities working on an unrelated murder case came across Marcy's missing persons file. Detectives tracked down Marcy's mother, obtained a DNA sample from her, and sent it to the Chai lab. When a database search indicated a potential match with the remains of the victim in Deer Creek case, officials sent DNA from Marcy's brother and father to Chai for further tests. On April 6, 2006, more than 21 years after her body was unearthed from a shallow grave, Marcy Bachman was found. When George Adams, program manager for Chai, is asked about cold hits like the Marcy Bachman case, where the DNA from unidentified remains matches the DNA from reference samples that have been sent to the lab without any apparent connection, he paraphrases Vernon Garbuth from Practical Homicide Investigation Tactics, Procedures and Forensic Techniques. Solving a cold case like Marcy's is not a matter of chance or luck. It is, quite simply, a matter of design and protocol. Yes. Yes. No truer words have ever been said. It is a matter of protocol. Like I said in the last slide, you won't think it to this day that agencies across different counties and countries don't have direct communications with all the cases, but they don't. It's still an ongoing issue. It's not something you saw back in the day on a true crime documentary. It's still ongoing. And if protocol was followed correctly and every time, I clearly believe that a lot of this would have been. We wouldn't have as many cases. There's around. There's about 400 that are published on the National Crime Agency's Missing Persons Unit website. Cases of unidentified missing people. But I think around altogether there's about 1,000. Because I've got quite a few on my little database. And there's cases there that they don't feature that are quite... well, if they've got like active leads and stuff, I don't think they feature those. If it's too traumatic, I don't think they feature those either. Like cases involving babies. They're very difficult cases. And I think that's a specialist, more a specialist one. Because it's... is it called causation? The things that cause that, the baby to be disposed of. It's a horrible sentence to say. The things that cause that comes from one single factor. Well, it's not one single factor, sorry. I shouldn't downplay it like that. But one of the... Hang on, what is it I'm thinking of? I think I might have this wrong. There's got to be something without a reaction. I can't remember what it is. I can't remember the terminology for it. But the fact that it's happened in it's an issue with childbirth. It becomes a specialist subject. A lot of the cases on the Missing Persons Unit website are all, you can group them into certain different things, but there's no black and white group that you can put everybody into. There's so many variables in the way. Where there's still variables with unidentified babies, there's that one thing that's happened, that they've been born, may have been the causation as to why they are where they are. And so that takes a specialist department to go through that. And to be quite honest with you, I think it's right that they're not on there right now. I might be wrong. I'm sure I don't see any. There are cases of some remains where they're like aged from 1 to 100. They don't know how old they are. But they're the only ones that I see that might involve a baby or something like that. Might. There's no confirmation that it is because they don't know how old they are. So, I think that's the reason. I'm rubbing my leg so it's rotten here. Shut up, Kelly. You're just going on. You don't know how to explain what you're going on about. But I do like that. Quite simply, a matter of design and protocol. I need that on a t-shirt. The design Adams refers to is a CODIS database. The protocol works like this. A person goes missing. If he or she is not found within 30 days, a family reference sample is obtained. The sample can take either of two forms: a DNA sample from a close relative, obtained by a simple, non-invasive cheek swab, or from a personal item belonging to the missing person, such as hair from a comb or saliva from a toothbrush. The sample is then sent to the lab, and the DNA is analysed. The results or profiles are then loaded into the database. Simultaneously, human remains found throughout the country are being sent to the Chai's lab for analysis and uploading into the database. DNA profiles for missing persons or their families are compared with unidentified human remains in the CODIS database. If we already have the family reference sample, we will get a match, Adams stated. No longer does solving a missing persons case or unidentified human remains case have to depend on a break in the investigation, he added, because we now have the design and the protocol of pure science. Populating the database, sample collection kits. But the database will help solve cases only if profiles from DNA samples and recovered human remains are submitted for analysis and uploaded into the system. We've seen a tremendous increase in the number of remains samples, but we really need to work on getting family reference samples, said Arthur Eisenberg, PhD, Director of CHAI and a member of the National Institute of Justice Missing Persons National Task Force. Breathe. If families don't send reference or biological samples, which at this stage must be collected by a law enforcement official, human remains cannot be identified. To facilitate this process, NIJ has funded CHAI's development of 2 DNA sample collection kits, one for family reference samples and the other for collecting and transporting human remains. Both kits are available free of charge to any police department, medical examiner or coroner in the United States. As of July 2006, more than 4,000 family reference sample kits had been disseminated. Is that something we need to do in the UK? Do we need to have an overhaul on all the cases that haven't got any family reference samples, send them off? I know a lot of cases of younger people now, they have that heel prick test, which has been made very famous in the case of Madeleine McCann. That's how they got Madeleine McCann's DNA profile. A lot of people said it was off a toothbrush, it was off a pillowcase, but they actually got Madeleine McCann's DNA profile from a heel prick test. And this is performed at a hospital. When she's born, they prick the heel of her foot, and the little droplet of blood is put on a little card. And this, I don't know what they do with the sample, or to be honest with you, really what it's for. But they managed to get a DNA from it. And so doing that actually helped determine whether someone else was Madeleine McCann or not, and they determined that she wasn't Madeleine McCann using the DNA profile from the heel prick test. So that there is in a way where DNA is actually being collected and recorded, which is ultimately cool. I wonder if it takes a long time for police to get that information from the hospital, or whether they have to send that information then to be tested. Because that could cause, again, another delay. So what's this bit? So Sean Riley there. One face behind NIJ's work. Melody Riley's brother, Sean, was murdered in the summer of 2005. His body was dumped in a field in rural Bastrop County, Texas, and was extremely decomposed when found. A year later, the Center for Human Identification, CHI, at the University of North Texas Health Science Center, identified Sean's body from his DNA. Here is a letter that Melody wrote to George Adams of CHI after the men who killed her brother were convicted. Dear Mr. Adams, I just want to tell you how much your office's work means to me, my sisters, our husbands, children, and extended family. Also on behalf of our parents, who are no longer here, but I'm sure they appreciate your efforts as well. My sister, Michelle, and I were in court during the trial last week, and it was so comforting to see the people who worked so hard to identify my brother's remains. My brother Sean was an amazing and special person who ended up in the company of the wrong and the worst people. What our family has gone through is almost the worst you can imagine. Wondering where Sean was, hoping the remains weren't his. The only thing worse is the terrible thought of not knowing where my brother is now. I wish he was here next to me, laughing and smiling. But unfortunately, that is no longer possible. What your office did to identify my brother and allow us to bring his remains home is something I can never repay or express enough gratitude for. It really scares me to think we could be in a completely different place right now. We feel badly because we put so much pressure, sometimes daily, on Investigator Yarborough to give us some answers from August through March, and he tried his best to keep us calm. I didn't realise how much work and time it takes to identify someone, and I am now happy that your office took every day and every minute they needed to get it done properly. Please pass my thoughts on to those involved and let them know their work is important and invaluable. I'm attaching a photo of Sean, so maybe you and they can have a nicer image of him. Melody Riley. And I think that last bit tells us exactly everything. The longer these cases are publicised and shared with the community, and there's something we need to do, we can't stop doing it, those images that are portrayed with those are images of their clothes and their possessions. The digitally created images, the forensically digitally created images that are done to try and provide some kind of image of him. I'm not really putting that in the best sentence, am I? That can be the one thing that's the image, they're the things that they're remembered by, and it can't be like that. We can't have that. We can't have that for the rest of their lives, for the rest of their existence, for the rest of their memories, for the rest of their family's memories. I think it's completely right to share that photograph and say that's Sean Riley. Not the remains that they had to process and they had to go through. The person that discovered that, finally putting a face to the name, to the remains, is a extremely important step. And I think for their closure as well. They need to know that closure has been done. I think it's so sweet of Melody to write a letter there and share her experience. Getting the word out. Spreading the word about this free resource remains a challenge. Last June, the Washington State Office of the Attorney General issued a bulletin encouraging local jurisdictions to send family reference samples to CHI, making Washington the first state to solicit samples on a statewide basis. Eisenberg said he has no doubt that word of the CHI analysis and database spreads. It will come to be regarded not as a tool of last resort in missing persons and unidentified human remains cases, Oh, get out my head. But rather as a primary investigative tool. I need a cigarette for a minute. I'm stressing out. I did quit for a bit smoking cigars, but just can't seem to calm down. Oh, hang on. Oh, the PKU test. Thank you, Dry Spell. Yeah, you're correct. That's what the test is called. In regards to the heel prick test. So it tells us how the test works here. So they do the prick. They put the drops of blood onto a medical card, which is like a filter paper. And it's used to check for high levels of phenylalanine, which can cause brain damage if left untreated. Let me double check that I've got the pronunciation of that right. Phenylalanine. Phenylalanine. Oh, it's phenylalanine.
Phenylalanine.
Phenylalanine. Oh. That's a hard word to say. That word you've wrote it there's hard to say as well. What's that? Phenylketonuria. That's as best as I'm getting from that. So as of July 2006, Chad received more than 680 unidentified human remains and more than 1,600 family reference samples. Importantly, the lab is in the final stages of being able to use robots, which will allow the number of DNA analysis to skyrocket. One robot, for example, will be able to analyse 17,800 DNA samples per year. 5 states, California, Kansas, Nevada, New Mexico and Texas, have laws that focus on locating missing persons and identifying human remains. In 2004, NIJ brought together federal, state and local law enforcement officials, forensic scientists, victim advocates, legislators and families of missing persons to draft model state legislation on the prompt collection, analysis and dissemination of evidence to help solve these cases. Seven states, Alabama, Arizona, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Ohio and Washington, and the District of Columbia have introduced bills that use the proposed legislation as guidance. Also, legislators in Kansas and New Mexico are seeking to amend their existing laws. In addition to prohibiting the cremation of unidentified remains, the model legislation would require that law enforcement agencies accept every missing person report and share case information with state regional authorities. DNA samples to be taken within 30 days of a missing person report and the individual's profile be added to the national, state and local databases. Why are there different ones? Just should be one large one available to everybody in an ideal world. Cases involving high-risk missing persons be assessed immediately. High-risk cases might include, for example, a possible stranger abduction or a person who requires medical attention or is mentally impaired. DNA analysis be performed on all unidentified human remains. One of the biggest challenges in missing persons and unidentified human remains cases is searching and correlating case information. The Missing Persons National Task Force is examining ways that federal databases can share information to help solve these cases. The challenge is significant. For example, NCIC contains more than 100,000 missing persons cases, but the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System contains only 47. NCIC contains just 15% of unidentified human remains cases, in part because it is so labour intensive to enter the data into the system. To encourage state and local law enforcement agencies the use of NCIC, the FBI published an updated version of the Missing Persons and Unidentified Data Collection Guides, which walk users through the process of comparing new and existing data on missing persons and unidentified human remains. Electronic versions of the guides are available to law enforcement officials through the Law Enforcement Online (LEO) intranet. VICAP is another valuable tool available to state and local officials. It is also underused for several reasons. Because data entered into NCIC does not automatically populate the VICAP database, which is also run by the FBI, many jurisdictions choose not to use it, and until recently, most of the nation's medical examiners and coroners did not have access to VICAP. We saw a similar issue in the case of Nicola Bulley, where when they were uploading information about the case of Nicola Bulley, they couldn't fully use the database or the software they were using. So they had to use what they prefer, a version that was more preferable to the officers at the time, which caused an issue in collecting that information. And then, well, we've already seen it. That caused a massive issue. And that was reported on by the Independent Office of Police Conduct, wasn't it? So we've seen similar issues here in the UK, although there's a lot that we don't know about. The situation is changing, however, as the FBI negotiates memoranda of understanding with local jurisdictions that will give medical examiners and coroners access to database. The FBI is also developing a DVD for law enforcement that explains how VICAP works. With the help from the Criminal Justice Information Service, known as CJIS, Division VICAP may soon be web-enabled. Instead of having to enter case information via CD-ROM, this is how old this is, CD-ROM. CD-ROM. Well, they don't do that now, do they? Which is then mailed to the CJIS for uploading. Fuck, it was old back then, wasn't it? CD-ROM, floppy disk. Which is then mailed. Users would need only an internet connection, and an LEO account to enter case data directly into VICAP. Wow. Now, that's just average day-to-day BS, innit? We can all put information up online. But for that being a fundamental change in 2007, it just goes to show, doesn't it, how important her work is, Nancy Ritter. In addition to funding Chai's work, NIJ administers a wide range of projects under the President's DNA Initiative. One major effort involves the training of police officers, prosecutors, defence counsel and judges, forensic and medical specialists, victim service providers, and corrections, probation and parole officers on the use of forensic DNA evidence. To date, the NIJ has held 2 regional missing persons training conferences, and by the end of 2006, NIJ's missing persons training reached professionals from all 50 states. NIJ is also developing many types of electronic training tools. One recent release is Principles of Forensic DNA for Officers of the Court, an interactive computer-based training program on the use of DNA evidence in the courtroom. I want that! I want to go with that. Other NIJ programs seek to eliminate the backlog of biological samples in murder, rape and kidnapping cases in forensic laboratories across the country. Since 2004, NIJ has provided funding to state and local agencies to reduce casework and convicted offender backlogs. NIJ also supports the development of tools and technology for faster, less costly methods of DNA analysis, including ways to analyse smaller and more degraded biological samples. And NIJ will continue to fund programs that enhance the use of DNA to solve crimes, protect the innocent, and identify missing persons. For DNA sample testing kits. Oh, that's information for law enforcement there. So this is the last bit. So the notes on this one, the Bureau of Justice Statistics is finalising a comprehensive census of the nation's medical examiners and coroners. This study, expected to be published in early 2007, will examine data from 2,000 medical examiners and coroners and focus on the issue of unidentified human remains. Nuclear DNA is a genetic material inherited from both parents, half from the mother and half from the father. It is found in the nucleus of each cell and is unique to each individual, except in the cases of identical twins. Nuclear DNA is a powerful identifier and has been used for forensic purposes for decades. Mitochondrial DNA, which is found in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, outside the nucleus, is inherited solely from the mother and is not unique. Everyone in the same maternal line for generations will have the same mtDNA. It uses a forensic tool in narrowing the pool of possible donors of a sample and is a more recent development. Short tandem repeats, known as STRs, are short sequences of DNA nucleotides that are repeated numerous times. An individual generic profile can be created by counting the number of repeats of the DNA sequence at a specific location of the chromosome. This repeat number varies greatly between individuals. According to authorities in Missoula, Marcy Bachman was murdered by Missoula serial killer Wayne Nance. So yeah, that's been The Silent Mass Disaster, written by Nancy Ritter for Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains, published in the National Institute of Justice Journal. Although this is a very older publication, it's still extremely important because one, we learn how things have grown, where things haven't grown. Like, for instance, there's still tons of databases. There's loads of them. Do we need a database for databases now? Although it didn't get into the particulars of issues with the community or social media, because the social media aspect wasn't a thing then, and the family issues in regards to they did get somewhat into the bit where they were providing kits for family members and educating family members, which still to this day is still much needed. And here in the UK, a lot of that information is provided by the missing persons charity, Missing People. They do so much for missing people and their families and their friends and their loved ones. And you can go over there and so there is a donate button over there. Let's get that link in. This is a way that we can crowdfund for more support for missing people. I've got to say, one of the very few charities that I do trust, the Missing People charity is definitely in there, along with, well, there ain't many more now, is there? There ain't many more now. Sad turn of events. And the Doe Network. I like the Doe Network. You can also provide a gift in your will if you wanted to. I've only got a metal pan. I've got no value, so unfortunately, you're not getting nothing from me. What a shame. Right, I'm going to make a cup of tea and then we're going to check over the Doe Network. So, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Let's add some text. Where are we? Text. There we go. That'll do for now. Be back in 5. That took a while. Just delete that before it terrorizes my CPU. Come on now. Why has this been added in? Updated on the 24th of the 4th. Maybe they've added some more information. Look, they tell you what they even tell you on here. Like, we don't normally get this from UK cases, but they're telling you that DNA, fingerprints, and dental records are all available. Finally getting somewhere to getting public information out there. Finally. So, the case of Ali Hamza Durrani, unknown, missing since the February the 6th, 2025 in Birmingham, West Midlands. From the prom. He was born on August 31st, 1992, and at the time of his disappearance he was 32 years old. He's an Asian male, standing at 5'8", slim to medium build, black hair, brown eyes. So he had a green coat and a hoodie, blue jeans and black shoes. He left home in Birmingham on the 5th of February 2025 at 12:46 p.m. He was seen on CCTV in different areas in Birmingham over the next 24 hours and was last seen on CCTV on February 6, 2025 at 28 minutes past 5 p.m. in Northfield in Birmingham. His intentions were and are still unknown. So they don't know why he went to Northfield. He has not been seen since, and there were no obvious signs of preparation for his absence. There have been numerous searches and media appeals, as well as an extensive investigation by West Midlands Police. Well, so they say. Unfortunately, Ali remains missing, and there have been no definitive leads. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Oh, on the wrong one. So this is a case we were just looking at. And it has been featured a number of times. I have seen it. So the Doe Network also accepts donations. Straight away with this case, you can see that one identifying feature sticks out like a sore thumb, and that's this tattoo here. Information like the fact that he's got longer hair and keeps it up, that's important information. I wouldn't say the glasses might be one of his possessions, I wouldn't say a prominent possession, and also I'm not sure that they're prescription glasses. But his beard, that would have been definitely notable. I've got a little bit here. Authorities have identified the remains found in a wooded area of York County last month as a man who'd been missing since June 2025. Mark Hicks, 39, of Thomasville, had not been seen or heard from since June 2022. 22nd of June 2025. His remains were discovered at about 7:28 a.m. on April 16th in a wooded area behind an address on the 400 block of East Middle Street in Hanover. Hicks' family said last year that Hicks had been seen on surveillance cameras walking down Pleasant Street in Hanover around 5 a.m. on June 22nd, 2025. His family said they last talked to him 2 days prior and didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. After obtaining dental records for Hicks and another man missing in the area, investigators confirmed the remains belonged to Hicks. The York County Coroner's Office announced on Friday. Hicks fatally suffocated and his death was ruled a suicide, the Coroner's Office said. No additional information has been released on the circumstances of his death and how soon he may have died after he was last seen. Hicks was also one of 3 men reported missing in Hanover around the area this time last year. Ben Garrett, last seen in May 2025, is still missing. Check that area. Check that area again. Check that area again. Check that area again. It's a local waterways. Check the waterways. Oh. When multiple members of the homeless community go missing, big red flags, and then one of them's been found. Well, sorry. Did I read here that it said that they were homeless, or am I just throwing that in? I think I've just threw that in for no reason. I think I've connected it with something else that just made me... Oh. But still check that area. Case number 1570 UFQC, discovered on the 30th of June 1994 in Pontiac, Strembles, Quebec, Canada, has been identified per NCMPUR. Well done. Don't really get many from over that way. Case number 1726 UMHI, discovered on the 25th of October 2005 in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, has been identified per NamUs. Case number 569 UMBC, discovered on September the 12th, 2005 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, has been identified. Another one from Canada, well done. Quebec, smashing the cases. The case of Lonnie Reeves. Columbia County Sheriff's Office and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement team have offered him to identify 1978 John Doe. Wow. After 47 years, a man whose remains were found in Lake City, Florida, had been identified as Lonnie Reeves, born in 1943. On November the 24th, 1978, the skeletal remains belonging to an unidentified individual were found in a wooded area near the rest area of the westbound side of the Interstate 75 in Lake City, Florida. Officers responded and began collecting evidence and investigating. A small bit of clothing was found near the remains, which were scattered and partially buried under soil and pine needles. A forensic anthropology investigation determined the remains were that of a white adult male, likely between the ages of 35 and 50 years old when he died, one of the most common age ranges here in the UK. Despite a lengthy investigation, the man could not be identified and become known as Lake City John Doe. A composite sketch was developed and released to the public, but it did not result in the man's identification. Details of the case were entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, known as NamUs, and in 2025, investigators teamed with Offerham to leverage identity inference, a process that enables investigators to identify individuals from DNA evidence, even when there is no known reference sample to initially compare against. Officials with the Columbia County Sheriff's Office and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement worked together to submit forensic evidence to Offerham's laboratory headquartered in the Woodlands in Texas. At Offerham, scientists worked to develop a DNA extract from the provided forensic evidence, using forensic-grade genome sequencing, which we've read about before, to build a comprehensive SMP profile for the man. The SMP profile powered a forensic search led by Offerham's in-house forensic genetic genealogy team, resulting in new investigative leads about the man's identity. Using this new information, a follow-up investigation was conducted, leading investigators to potential relatives of the man. The investigation led to the positive identification of the man, who is now known to be Lonnie N. Reeves, born on November 21st, 1943. A family member who had not seen Reeves since 1970 provided a DNA sample that confirmed his identification. Special thanks to FDLE, which accepted the case in the Missing and Unidentified Human Remains Programme and facilitated the case being sequenced and processed by Offerham using federal BJA MUHR grant funds. This is the 59th publicly announced case in the state of Florida where officials leverage Offerham's identity inference pipeline. I love reading that sentence. Cold case murder victim identified as grandmother. DA officials hoping ID leads the suspect. Using genealogy, the Santa Clara County District Attorney's Cold Case Unit has identified a woman whose dismembered torso and religious pendants were found in a San Jose field in 1981. The woman is Vivian Moss. She was 54 years old at the time of her murder. Cold case team members and Moss's surviving family are hoping the identification will lead them to Moss's killer. They are asking the public to come forward with any new information about Moss and her tragic fate. The DA's office featured the case in a video released in October 2023, hoping someone could identify it. District Attorney Jeff Rosen said, Vivian Moss was her name. My office knows it. I know her. I know it. Her family knows it. And now our community knows it. One day, I hope we will know the depraved person who took her life and left her in a field, hoping she would be forgotten. If their murderer is still alive, they will know that we don't forget in Santa Clara County. The cold case unit was established in 2011, and since that time, the DA's office has solved over 30 cold case murders committed as early as 1969. More than half of those cases have been solved since 2008 due to advances in DNA analysis at the District Attorney Crime Lab. The DA's office has now solved 6 cold case homicides with the use of forensic genealogy. On July the 11th, 1981, the dismembered torso of a woman was found by San Jose police in an empty field where the VTA Baressa Transit Centre and BART station parking structure is now located. She had no ID, but 2 religious pendants were found near her body. Her death was ruled a homicide from multiple stab wounds to the chest and dismemberment. What a horrific way for a grandmother to pass away. In 2023, the DA's office partnered with forensic genealogists at Parabum Nanolabs to identify the woman. Last year, Parabum hypothesized that the victim was likely Moss, who was born in Arkansas in 1927. In 2024, DA investigators located and interviewed Vivian Moss's granddaughter. She told investigators that when she was a young girl in the early 1980s, Vivian was supposed to pick her up to stay the night at her home. Vivian didn't show, and she never saw her grandmother again. In 2024, the DA's office concluded that the victim was Vivian Moss based on Parabum's genealogical testing, comparing the grandmother's DNA to crime scene evidence. Vivian was a follower of the MT Zion Spiritual Church. Family members say she was close to the church leader, Louis H. Narcissi, who died in 1989. She may have worked at an elementary school in Oakland at some point before she disappeared. So they're probably seeking people then that were part of the Zion Spiritual Church, work colleagues of hers, friends, other family members that may not be in contact with the others. They might not even know that she's been identified. So they've still got a lot more work to do. But it's quite shocking to see someone brutally take out a grandmother with such disregard. What an utter shame. Well, I hope they get some answers soon. Seated the cumbersome suitcases of the sister-in-law killer. So the bodies of Darwisha and Fatima were discovered in suitcases at the bottom of a van belonging to their brother-in-law. Tamazaki is on trial in Nantari as prosecuted for R-word in his ex-wife, the third sister. For 3 years, this 53-year-old man has denied it, accusing Joeda's in-laws for the first crime, and one of his employers hired on construction sites for the second. A clever strategist, the accused is a chess player. He may have difficulty convincing the jurors of his innocence. It was in his van that the body suitcases were discovered. It was indeed him that the CCTV filmed using the bank card of one of his victims at the ATM. He was also the last to have seen the two sisters who disappeared in the same conditions. On November the 20th, 2012, alongside his ex-wife, Mimuna, Tamar Zaki was apparently worried about Fatma's disappearance. Mimuna is consumed with anguish and faces the resurgence of the past. On February the 12th, 1999, her other sister, Jawida, disappeared between Clinchley and the 16th arrondissement of Paris, where she was supposed to move into the maid's room, while she had an appointment with her brother-in-law to buy furniture. At the time, Tamazaki spared no effort to feed investigators with false leads, while multiplying wanted posters and going far to participate in a television programme for a new call for witnesses. The investigation had stalled. And Jawida had not reappeared. Nearly 14 years later, history is repeating itself. Fatma, then 57 years old, did not return to her small apartment in a Porty Clinchley. Her daughter and sister, Mimuna, did not believe in voluntary disappearance. Handicapped by multiple sclerosis, Fatma rarely goes out. For this second disappearance, suspicion fell on Tamar Zaki when a trace of the victim's blood was found on one of the shoes he was wearing on November the 20th, the last to have seen it. They are reinforced when his face appears in front of the ATM from which he tries to withdraw 1,000 with his sister-in-law's card, 3 hours after her disappearance. At the time of his arrest on November the 23rd, the suspect had about 20 keys to the box and cars. 2 weeks later, one of the keys opened a van belonging to Tamar Zaki, parked near the building in Clinchley. Inside, 2 cases placed on top of each other. One is the one that disappeared from Fatma's room the day the unfortunate woman evaporated, whose body is enclosed in a fetal position. The autopsy confirmed that it was indeed Fatma who had been strangled to death. The second piece of luggage contained bones, and the expert report showed that they were the remains of Jawida, whose cause of death remained undetermined. 2 sisters were united in the horror of the death probably inflicted by the husband of the third. The alleged murderer faces life imprisonment. That was a difficult one to read. So a couple of cases there on the solved section of the Doe Network. Who gives a fuck? Couple of new cases. So this is a case up in Scotland. So the body of a large white European female aged between 30 and 60 years old and standing at 183 centimetres, which is 6 foot in height, was found on the 23rd of September 2025. She was recovered by a coast guard in the water just a few miles from the coast of the Isle of Iona. It is believed she had been in the water 4 to 6 weeks. She is described as medium to large build and estimated to be between 30 and 60 from dentition that is consistent with work. That is consistent with UK work, and most likely between 45 and 60 from anthropological findings. No discernible scars or tattoos. She had grey and black Coolmax socks, black walking trousers or leggings, and Mendel walking boots in a size 8.5, and they were brown and burgundy in colour. So this is in Strathclyde. Police are doing it. I don't want to get in that. It's got a small white motif on the left thigh area. Unless bought in a sale, seems like something a younger person. Some notable scuff marks there, aren't there? I don't know if that's sun damage from the sea. But they don't seem to be that old of a pair of shoes, because look at how intact the lace is. The plastic's still around the end of the lace. I don't know if this is like a mould that's on them, or it's a scuff mark. It might be mould by the look of that there. They said it's now discontinued. An 8.5 though is a large shoe for a woman, isn't it? So that's got to be quite distinctive. And then we've got a secondary case. I think this is an older one. So they've re-evaluated this case, I'm sure they have. Oh, he wore glasses. And he was a smoker as well. Had a full set of dentures. Why does it sound to like you would think, because someone's got their disposable razors with a shaving brush on them, that they might be homeless because they're carrying around self-care items that you would normally keep at home. But what if this person was in a hotel? I don't know. So the body of a male, aged between 40 and 60, he was white European and stood at 5'7" tall, was found on the 24th of August, 1935. What? We got two different dates. On the 30th of the 3rd, 2002, this male was located deceased on vacant waste ground in the Barras area of Glasgow. When was he found? Oh, whatever. He is believed to have been deceased for a minimum of 4 months up to around 2 years. Can't even get the basic information on the date of when he was found. What the hell has the 24th of August 1935 got to do with anything? "67 years difference, why?" He had a full set of dentures and evidence of arthritis of the spine, which is likely to have made him to walk with a stoop or a hunchback. He was found wearing extensive clothing items, lots of layers including some smart attire and largely M&S branding. Well then, I don't know. The fact that he's wearing a lot of layers could indicate he's homeless, but then again, elderly people do get colder quicker, and so they may layer up on their clothing to keep warm. But then we've got the added extra of the fact that he had disposable razors in a tin with a shaving brush and mirror. But he did have a set of rusty keys, so he must have been somewhere. There must have been somewhere that he was residing. I don't think I'm too much inclined to think that he is homeless. There's something about it that's saying that he was maybe travelling in the Barras area of Glasgow. There's something else that's unspecified, unknown. Is it a mark or a scar? Had a pair of checked Marks and Spencer's trousers, a checked tweed suit jacket with shoulder pads, brownstone Valley lace-up boots. Oh, he had a green combat jacket with patterned Levi jeans wear lining, button fastening with rivets, River Island pattern necktie, red green St. Michael cardigan, a long sleeve Marks and Spencer navy diamond patterned pullover, navy Jollyman trousers, blue and black padded jacket, size medium, Star and Stacy casual classics, zip and button fastening. Maybe he was planning to make a long journey from his home. Another jacket, a Marks and Spencer's green jacket. A shirt with a 15-inch collar. Pure wool blue trousers. Wow, he must have been getting hot. He had another jewellery item. Well, I don't know if he did, but I'm kind of saying that he did. A leather strap watch. That's a very canny image, isn't it? Has he got a hole above his ear? Can you see that there? I don't know why they would want to put that in there. That's strange, isn't it? Could be a piercing. Who knows? Who knows? So yeah. A couple of new cases on the Missing Persons Unit website and on there. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm trying, but I don't think I'm getting anywhere. I don't think I can bring anything to the table anymore. So yeah, that's it for Blank Faces today. Thank you very much for watching.